What's up, friends? Welcome into our members only Q&A. I am Andy Herman. You know that already, but thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys not only being here and joining us for today's show, but also for being unbelievably amazing Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube members as well. Appreciate all the support. Let's jump right away into all of your incredible questions. Have about an hour here before I got to get my kid to soccer practice. So we'll get to as many questions, hopefully all of your questions throughout the course of today's show. Is a little bit more of a slow-ish news time in Packers land. We did get the confirmation today that Jonathan Gannon has been hired. We got the confirmation last Friday that Goody, Matt, and Russ Ball have all been extended. But for the moment right now, not a ton going on. They still have to find a new quarterbacks coach and some things like that. Maybe they could, look into a special teams coordinator or maybe some changes there. But what do I know? But yeah, we still have a lot to go over this week. We got Justice Mosqueda coming on tomorrow. And then we're going to look at some potential free agent trade and, maybe cut candidate targets that Green Bay could look to add at some of the key positions, offensive line, defensive line, corner, etc. through the course of this week. So it should be a fun look at that as well. Let's start. Actually, we're going to start with our super chats right away. Toys R Us rocks. I like that name. And thank you so much for the super chat, especially on a members Q&A. Man, I love what you do. Blows my mind lately seeing people absolutely hating you on socials for Packers stuff. We're talking football here, not real world stuff even. Keep on talking. I'll keep watching. Appreciate you. Well, first of all, it's very kind of you. Thank you for reminding me of how many people don't like me. It is very funny. First and foremost, if you get to a certain level, it's just going to happen. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do to change people's minds. It is humorous to me that somebody who walks downstairs and podcasts in their basement could have that much vitriol, or that, anyone has a hardcore stance one way or the other. But hey, if you sleep better at night being an Andy Herman hater and know that you hate my content and don't like how I cover the Packers, well, I'm happy I can provide that service to you. But it is very humorous to me. But we're all Packers fans. We all have different ideas. We all have different concepts, etc. But that's what makes it fun. And I'm going to keep covering it the way that I cover it. I have no slant, no angle, no desire to have a slant or an angle. Just what I think is best. I get some stuff wrong. I get some stuff right. But it's more important to me to just have fun and enjoyable and hopefully educational Packers conversations every single day. I love to do what I do, and I appreciate the support, Toys R Us rocks, and really everyone else being here as well. But yeah, it comes with the territory, but it does weird me out sometimes. I'm not going to lie. HBK Forever, also another great name. Mount Rushmore wrestler for me, by the way. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. No question about it. Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Will Ospreay. That's my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. I can go into detail as to why at some other point, but that's my Mount Rushmore. I didn't even answer your question. Why don't the Packers kick the tires on Justin Tucker? I know he's alleged at being a terrible person, but we already signed McManus, so there's that. Yeah, I honestly, if I'm being totally frank, I don't really feel like touching that one with a 10-foot pole. I would prefer that they don't have to have these type of character flaws on anybody on the roster. I know it's a complicated business, and sometimes you have to maybe make a deal with the devil to kind of get something that you need. But yeah, there's obviously been a reason that nobody, and I mean nobody, has taken a swing at it's an interesting way to put it, but taking a shot at, that's another interesting way to put it. You get what I mean? Taking a chance on Justin Tucker one way or the other. Kickers are not easy to come by. So if teams felt comfortable with doing it, I have a feeling he'd have a job by now, but he doesn't. I have a feeling that there's a reason for that, and it's probably a valid one, but that's all I can tell you. That's all I can guess. And it's not like I'm certainly not pining for Justin Tucker to be a Green Bay Packer. That's for sure. David, Arizona's Connor Sanger is an old childhood friend, talented athlete himself, smart and driven. I hope he gets it just because it'd be fun for me. David, that's cool. Like that's sometimes good enough reason, right? We all have our own little biases and players and coaches and things that we like or don't like or whatever. But yeah, he seems like a really smart person by all accounts. I love that they're interviewing him. And now if he goes out and does well in the interview, I'm sure Matt will have some level of interest. And I'd be willing to bet that Jonathan Gannon gave him a huge vote of confidence and say, hey, bring this guy in for an interview. We'll see if we can get it. I love the Wisconsin ties as well. Usually if there's that tie and you love the team already, maybe there's a little bit more effort and energy into even putting more work into it. But it seems like he'd be a good candidate. We'll see if Matt ultimately hires him. All right, we'll get back to most hated Chicago in here. Happy mock draft Monday. Andy, enjoyed the video this morning and never looked at the Jordan trade and the way you broke it down. $14 million more than the current cap hit. I'm not concerned with the Packers cap. I do believe that Wicks has more trade value than you do, more so than Reed would have. That's not true for sure. And that he could be a wide receiver 2 on most teams. Jaguars were interested in Musgrave, Steelers, Panthers, and Dolphins for Wicks. Yeah, Reed would definitely have more trade value than Dontavian Wicks, but I don't doubt that Wicks would have some trade value. I just don't think it's anything more than a late day 3 pick. But I will say one of the really, really hard parts and one of the more difficult, episodes kind of to put together are talking about trade value, because everybody, and I mean, this is even like in the league where somebody will get traded. I mean, look at Luka Doncic, for God's sakes. Like, Luka Doncic gets traded and the Dallas thinks that that's a good deal. And everyone else is just like, what are you doing? Like, that is an insanely stupid idea. And it just like, there's not consensus by anybody on what value any individual player that it will have. I will say a lot of times it comes down to age and contract. And if you are a older player with a big contract, you're just not going to get usually much in return unless you are a very premium player or at a very premium position. And if you are young and on a cheap contract, you're going to have more value throughout the league, and that ups your value a little bit. I think Reed has a good deal of value being young and on a cheap contract. I think Wicks, just with some of the injury stuff, having kind of an off year with the drops in 2024, I don't think his value is as high, but I do think there would be some team that would be willing to give up something for him for sure. All right. McDuffie, Wicks, Nixon to Dolphins for picks, Valentine and Brooks. Yeah, I would just say most stated Chicago, and without going too far into depth into this, the usual offseason is maybe a trade, right? Maybe a trade. Maybe right before the cut down date, you get a couple or something like that. But to all of a sudden say, well, trade McDuffie, trade Wicks, trade Nixon, trade Musgrave, trade Valentine, trade Brooks. They're not going to trade 6 players for draft picks. Maybe I'll be wrong, but that's not usually what happens, right? And more often than not, you have developed and spent time, putting time, effort, and energy into these players. A lot of these are players that you're talking about are very cheap and they're under team control, and you kind of want to keep them in the system that you already have, in the program that you already have, with the time that you've spent with them and developed them. And to get a 7th round pick that you don't know what it's going to amount to is usually not, something that a team wants to make too big of a habit out of doing. Could 1 or 2? For sure. Is it something that's going to happen all the way around? No, you're not going to see 6 or 7 trades from Goody this offseason. At least I'd be pretty stunned if we saw anything like that. Last question or comment: would Hobbs have more value if we play more dime? I believe Cooper would be the linebacker on the field. At least that's what we would want with X, Evan, Bullard, and Oladapo with 2 corners. Yeah, I would think in that scenario, I mean, at least as of right now, hopefully they upgrade corner. But in that scenario right now, Bullard and Hobbs are in the slot with Valentine and Nixon on the outside. And then Cooper at linebacker, depending on what happens with Quay. Williams and X at safety. And then, Micah, LVN, Wyatt, and, choose your other pass rusher at that point in time. But that's probably what you'd be looking at in a sort of dime look. Am I willing to pay $10 million for a dime only corner? No, probably not. And some depth there? No, I'm not. But to your point, if they did play more dime, he would have more value in that scenario. Saints, Brown, and Paris. Seriously, we French people are so disappointed. I guess seeing Myles Garrett will be nice, though. I get it. It would have been cool because I think Green Bay plays New Orleans as a road game. Would have been awesome. I would have gone for sure. If it was Packers, Saints in Paris, sign me the hell up. I would have been there. A part of me is hoping that Green Bay gets a European international game this year, because I would be pretty stunned if I didn't go. But we'll see. Time will tell. And I do feel for you. It does feel like sometimes they're just giving any game, and it's not always the best. I don't know if Browns Saints is really moving the needle for anyone in Paris, but you get NFL football, you do get Myles Garrett. Saints played some pretty good football at the end of the year. Browns will be different. They'll maybe have a new quarterback, but it's certainly not the most ideal matchup. It even looks just disgusting, like a Browns helmet next to a Saints helmet. Just it doesn't look right, but it's football, right? You at least get something. Of course, NFL here in Paris would be great. I was just so high on Packers Saints. It would have been awesome. Would have absolutely been awesome. Any kicker or punt returners you might target for next year? Probably something I need to look into a little bit more. Logan, haven't really looked into it yet. Where you run into issues is that I did look at this at the trade deadline last year, and almost everyone, at least that does both, really, even if you just narrow it to punt returner, everyone's a wide receiver except Marcus Jones for the Patriots, who's a corner. You just don't have many punt returners who are anything other than a wide receiver. And in that scenario, it's not impossible. And you do have kind of that number 6 spot open, right? In all likelihood, if Dobbs is gone, Watson, Reed, Wicks, Golden, Savion, and Blank. And Blank could be somebody that they target as more of a kick returner, punt returner specialist with maybe some gadget ability. They could. I don't know that they will. That's usually not what they do. But whether that's via free agency, trade, draft, I would think more probably draft in that scenario. But I would be open to it to find a more dynamic returner if Green Bay could find somebody in that ilk. Green Bay can't cut their second best offensive lineman Banks unless they have a direct replacement in free agency. I don't agree with the premise of the conversation. What I mean by that is I go back to the simple stating of, would you sign Aaron Banks to a 1-year, $19 million deal? If the answer is no, regardless of where you think the offensive line is at, then you have to move on and you have to look for replacements elsewhere. Because as I've talked about, you can use that same $19 million, whether it's to find a Tevin Jenkins, whether it's to, maybe instead of signing one big, marquee offensive lineman, maybe you sign three, what basically was like Tevin Jenkins, like contracts that happened last year. And you try to get three different veterans and hope that one or two of them are able to hit in Green Bay. Or maybe you sign two of them at around $10 million a year. There's a variety of different ways that you could go. And I think this offensive line needs an influx one way or the other. Or maybe you cut Elton Jenkins, you cut Aaron Banks, and maybe you make an aggressive run. I don't think Tyler Linderbaum is going to be in the conversation, but maybe you make an aggressive run at that. And maybe you say, hey, we'll take a really great center in Linderbaum. We'll do Anthony Belton and Travis Glover, two huge guys on the interior, with Morgan and Zach Tom at tackles. Maybe we'll try something like that. There's a variety of ways that they could go. I think the first thing I would say is I would much rather have Sean Ryan at about what I think is going to be around $10 million than Banks on his contract. So I would release Banks and I would resign Sean Ryan. And I'm probably saving about over $10 million this year, or at least that I can in cash. I'll put it that way. And now I can go out and sign somebody else as well. I think Tevin Jenkins probably goes in that $10 million range right there. That I can cut Aaron Banks, sign Tevin Jenkins and Sean Ryan, and I feel immeasurably better. I feel immeasurably better about where I'm at than rather just keeping Banks and letting Ryan go and not signing somebody. So that's probably more of a direction that I would go in. But again, we'll see what Goody does. If I had to guess, if I had to bet, I expect Aaron Banks to be back on the team. And I think it's going to be the wrong decision. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong both ways, that either they do release him and they are able to upgrade, or I hope that I'm wrong and that they keep him and he's just awesome next year. That would be great as well. I have a process question. How do you prepare, set up for your daily videos? Do you make an outline or have notes pulled up? Your delivery is great and natural. My job involves presenting, so just curious. Yeah, I'll see if I can share this really quick here. I got to make sure there's nothing, it shouldn't be anything crazy. All right, trying to bring up one that actually makes sense. So here's probably a good example of one. All right, so here's my one from the trade video from yesterday. So just intro, welcome, talk about Mike LaFleur really quick, talk about Sean Duggan officially getting the job, Steno going to Seattle, consensus draft and extension candidates, just a reminder of the video that I did the other day. Then we get into our main topic. I've got some notes on Jordan Love, what the cap hit looks like, potential trades, what it would look like, etc. This is for today's video for the trade candidates. We talked about the Malik Willis franchise tag, what that looks like, just some general numbers. Josh Jacobs, what could you get? Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Gary Nixon, Valentine, Hobbs, Javon Bullard. And then usually I've got my, I forgot it yesterday, but my little outro as well with our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members, which I give the thank you and shout out to as well. But it usually is something pretty similar to this, where it's just kind of a blank outline to kind of remind me the direction that I want to go in. And then a lot of it is me kind of filling in the blanks in between just with the stuff that I already know. So if it's like a dollar number, something like that would be, something that I usually have a note on. And then, again, bolded is just kind of a reminder of what I want to talk about next. So I can just kind of take a quick glance and then be like, all right, back to you guys and talk about it. And then again, if I need a number or something, I can quick glance down and get that number. So that's generally what it looks like. It also depends on the video. If it's one where I'm doing, kind of spreadsheet Andy and we're going through a bunch of numbers. Like that stuff takes a long time to produce and put together and have all the numbers. And that can take days just to kind of put together. There are other times where, obviously for like a live show, if I'm going live because the Packers just traded for Micah Parsons or something like that, I'm usually doing that off the cuff. Today, I didn't prep anything for a Q&A today or when we do happy hour. I don't have anything, pulled up or prepared. It's just you guys and we're going to talk. Justice today, I've got, kind of some notes for Justice that I want to talk about. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. Nothing too crazy. Some episodes have a lot more notes. Some have a lot less. Andy, is there any chance that Javon Bullard could play outside corner? No. I would just say no. I think he could play safety. I think he could play slot. I think he could even play some nickel linebacker if you needed him to. I don't think outside corner is something that you want him, kind of making a habit of. All right. Sorry, I just had a lot of alerts. Wanted to make sure there was nothing Packers related. Doesn't look like anything. Oh, we got Goody on Wednesday, 12:30. Good. I don't think I have anything going on at that time. So it looks like we got Goody on Wednesday. What's a reasonable price tag for 1 year of Calais Campbell? It's probably what he got kind of last year. I don't think he's declined. So we got $6 million last year. I think that's probably about the same. I would say 1 year, $6 million. So it's $2.25 million base, $2 million. That was all guaranteed. Then $2 million signing bonus, $1.25 million in per game roster bonuses, and $500,000 in what was probably, workout bonuses and things like that. So 1 year, $6 million. That's what he got last year. I would assume at age 40 that's what he'll be this year again. Any free agent kickers that you would be interested in? We'll take a look at that later this week. I haven't looked at kickers too much yet. That is on my sort of miscellaneous category to look at a little bit later this week. So we'll get into all of those options as this week goes along. Last but not least, thanks for all the great work. I love your in-season content, but for some reason, I'm even more addicted to the off-season stuff. I think off-season, there's just a lot that can happen, right? And I just think there's a lot of hypotheticals. I think there's a lot of, just sort of, idea constructs of what Green Bay could do, shouldn't do, will do, might do. And then you look at options and then you actually get to free agency and you see which players walk and which players are joining the team. Draft is always really fun. I just think in season, you've got like kind of wins or losses and you're kind of riding the wave of what the team is doing. And you feel either great or terrible, depending on how the team is playing. And in the off season, yeah, you can have some moments where you're feeling a little bit more bummed if you didn't get the free agent that you wanted, or they drafted somebody in the first round that you didn't like per usual. They passed on Cooper DeJean or whatever, but there is a lot more kind of hope and optimism, and you have far fewer losses in that period of time. So I just think it's a lot of fun content, and it's easy to continue a rise of excitement in the off season, where in season, there's a little bit more of that roller coaster. Let's go to Andrew. Do you have a draft crush yet? No. I will get there soon. I should have a lot of time Tuesday through Saturday this week to look at some draft prospects, which I'm really, really excited about. So should get to some of that this week. Jordan Love has the same number of touchdowns this postseason as both Drake May and Sam Darnold. It's a shame that he didn't get, more games to go out and prove himself even more. He was awesome in that playoff game, and I wish we were still watching him this weekend. Dolphins re-signed Joe Barry. Don't ever scare me like that again, Andy. Ever hire Joe Barry? Andy, go back to the drawing board. First of all, I never pined for it. I never said that that's what they should do. I just said if they actually did do it, he'd probably be a good linebackers coach. I'm sure he'll continue to be a very good linebackers coach in Miami now under Jeff Hafley. I am not upset that he is not a member of the Green Bay Packers coaching staff. I'll just put it that way. Andy, thanks as always for doing this. Your consensus versus Goody episode was awesome. Really, really fun. Kind of ended up the way I'd expect. The Jordan pick made up for a lot of mistakes. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. I think, not having Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, etc., would have been a huge bummer. And of course, not having Jordan Love. On the flip side, not having, or I should say, getting guys like, whether it be DK Metcalf, Christian Gonzalez, like those would have been a ton of fun. Brian Branch would have been a ton of fun. I think, even a secondary or a defense that has Brian Branch and CJ Gardner-Johnson, that's going to add some of that piss and vinegar that you need to any given defense. That there were options there. We talked a little bit, even though it wasn't on either board, of the Creed Humphrey scenario. You're going to get things right. You're going to get things wrong. And I think Goody, for the most part, has done a pretty good job. Did he miss on some things? Absolutely. Does every GM? Absolutely. I don't think there's any other way to put it than he has to do a better job with his first round picks outside of Jordan Love. And yeah, I guess Jair would probably be put in that category as well. And if he can continue to do well on days 2 and 3, that's still going to help him a ton, but just has to find a way. And the other thing too is the draft is about finding difference makers. It's really good that Goody's great at finding good players, right? And that he can find them all throughout the draft. But you have to be able to find all pros. You have to be able to find all pros. And that's something that Goody just hasn't done a good enough job with yet. And he's going to have to be a little bit better at that moving forward. Maybe Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper, Jordan Love, maybe Matthew Golden gets there someday. I don't know, but Zach Tom could arguably be in that conversation. Maybe some of Tucker Kraft should be in that conversation. Maybe some of those guys get there, right? But that's the next step is he's got to figure out some top end talent to take this team from really good or great to exceptional in winning Super Bowls. That kind of analysis should legitimately be part of the Packers self-scouting, not to say that the consensus board is better or Goody should go that way, but a way to assess the scouting process. I'm hoping that they do a lot of self-scout, John, and that they look at that a lot, but I couldn't tell you for sure. Did you see the Packers and Seahawks conducted a joint interview with the cornerback prospect? This is so strange to me. I would like to hear, I did see it. I'd like to hear a little bit more on that. I don't know how much I'm not saying that the report is fake or false. I wonder if just something got kind of lost in translation or maybe it was just much ado about nothing. Maybe, maybe they only had, maybe the corner had to get going. I think it was a corner, right? Yeah. Maybe the corner had to get going and only had time for one more interview. And the Packers and Seahawks were the next two teams to meet with them. And they're just like, hey, can we do this together? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. No big deal. There's probably some extenuating circumstance there. Maybe there isn't. It doesn't really matter either way. I also will say, all these reports of so-and-so team met with this prospect. Everyone meets with everybody at some point, whether it's on campus, whether it's at the combine, whether it's at, Senior Bowl or one of the other, kind of bowl situations or all-star games, whether it's at a final or a top 30 visit, they meet with everybody at some point. These guys dot their I's and cross their T's at a very, very high level. Really enjoyed the Lambeau tour. One question: how full was the press box during the regular season? Is it a lot more full during playoffs? How do stadiums accommodate the press for Super Bowls? Well, the Packers don't have Super Bowls, and I've never been to one, so I don't know the answer to that if I'm being 100% honest. But the press box is full pretty much at all times, regular season and playoffs. It really depends on the incoming people from the opposing team. If you're getting a team that doesn't have a ton of media coverage, that a lot of people don't travel with the team on the road, sometimes that other side can get a little bit more thin. In a playoff game, yeah, there's a few more people there, both from Green Bay side of the media as well as usually from the opposing team as well. Pearly, nice to see you. Andy, this will be my first offseason spent with your podcast. What kind of Packers content will I look forward to this summer? Well, we have a lot of stuff coming up. A lot of the stuff, is things that we've done, meaning we already looked at, potential cut candidates. We looked at, obviously some of the coaches. We looked at some trade candidates. We looked at re-signing or contract extension candidates and who they should keep. Next, we're going to look at potential free agents. We will eventually get into kind of doing a mock off season and what that could potentially look like. Take a look at the salary cap as well. We'll look at, obviously, the draft in very great detail, who Green Bay could pick, who they should pick. We'll do mock drafts. We'll then break down in great detail everyone that Green Bay signs, everyone that Green Bay lets go and why they did it. We'll look at any new coaches that come to Green Bay. We will look at, obviously, post-draft, everyone that they actually drafted in super great detail with my favorite part of the year, going into the deep dives on all the new candidates after watching all the film of them, or all the new draftees, I should say. And then after that, we get into rookie minicamp, OTAs. And then after that, you've got about a month-ish. That is a little bit more of a downtime. And we kind of look back at what happened in 2025 and look ahead to 2026. And we'll do some listicles and some things like that. And then before you know it, end of July, we'll be here. Training camp, family night, preseason, cut down day, and then regular season week 1, and we're off and running all again, and hopefully a Super Bowl season up and coming. So that's what you can look forward to, Pearly. A lot of really fun stuff, and hopefully you can make it just about every day because we got you covered 365. You normally focus on predicting the Packers' first-round pick. How are you going to handle? Oh my God, I haven't thought about that. We'll do our best, John. We'll do our best. I mean, you're probably going to be able to narrow it down by high-end athletes at offensive line, defensive line, or corner, you probably still narrow it down pretty well. And then who's in that, 35 to 60 range, we'll be able to do it. We'll be able to narrow it down to about, I bet, 8-ish candidates. Andy, did you drive here? Did you take the bus? Always got a fire in my gut. Always got the fire in the gut. Always got the fire in the gut. Usually it's because I had some Taco Bell or something. You need to go into a gastroenterologist. If it gets worse, call 911. Take your health seriously, my friend. If I'm good, I'm extending Kraft and Watson, and everyone else has to wait and see if there's still money left, unless they're going to take a discount. I pretty much feel the exact same, John. Pretty much feel the exact same. Is there a reason I have to have my screen open on my phone when you're live, but I can close my screen and just listen on your normal videos? I believe that is a YouTube thing, and I do not know why. It's not a Packet A thing. I have no control over that, but I believe that that's kind of a known issue with YouTube, and I wish I had a solution for you, but unfortunately I do not. Who could possibly not like Andy? It's impossible. Oh, there's threads, my friend. There are threads. They're fun. Go check them out. Do a search for Andy Herman on social media. You'll find some fun stuff. Feel like kickers are valued so weirdly. They're not paid well, but I've never heard of a good one being traded. What would you trade for Aubrey? Everyone has a price, right? Probably a second. And it probably should be more than that. But I don't know if I could trade pick 52. I don't know if you could trade, but I would trade a 2028 second round pick for him. That's probably as high as I could go. I don't think I can offer a first. I just don't think I can get there, especially too, because I think, kickers are very volatile, and all of a sudden Aubrey could come to Green Bay and just suck next year, which would be brutal. So I probably couldn't go more than a 2, and I don't want to trade a 2 this year, next year, because they don't have many picks. So 2028 second round pick is probably the best I could do. Do you have any faith left in Musgrave? It felt like he flashed a little bit, but when they had him doing what he's supposed to be good at, I think he is what he is at this point. I think he got another opportunity to kind of showcase himself. It was okay. He's not going to be a blocker. He's not going to be a dynamic receiver. I talked about if you could extend him for like 3 years, $12 million. If you think about it, that's probably like a $3 million deal next year, like a $4 million deal the year after that. And then, or it might even be like a 2, a 4, and then a 6. But that 6 is really like a team option. You probably have a little bit of dead cap, but you probably save $5 million on that. So it probably more becomes like a 2-year, like $7 million deal. I think you could do something like that just to keep him in hand. And I think he does bring some receiving ability to the team. I don't think he's bad, but I think he probably is who he is at this point in time. No Eddie Guerrero on your Rushmore. I hope he's an honorable mention at the very least. I love Eddie Guerrero. I will say I wisened up too late to the Eddie Guerrero, just how amazing he was. I watched WCW a lot growing up, and obviously the matches that they had, the Jerichos, the Malenkos, the Guerreros, we can go on and on. The mid card there with some of the really great wrestlers they had was really, really fun. Enjoyed the heck out of that. But I didn't really appreciate Guerrero until really he was probably gone, unfortunately. He's an unbelievable wrestler, an all-time great. Doesn't quite reach my Mount Rushmore, but one of the all-time greats, no question about it. Are we getting any comp picks for a backup GM going to Miami? No. It has to be a minority candidate, and Green Bay's was not. So no picks for him. Chris Brooks is a low-key must-sign. Pass pro is so important, especially with how the line has been playing. I want the ball in Love's hands more, and I worry about how that might play out with no good pass-protecting running backs. I would love Chris Brooks back. I personally think I kind of just want all 4 back, if I'm being honest. I like Wilson, although I do think you could probably try to maybe upgrade Emmanuel Wilson a little bit, although I do like Wilson. But if you could have Jacobs, Lloyd, and Brooks, and then maybe a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick as a potential change of pace as well, I think that'd be a pretty good running back group that I could get behind. Obviously, Lloyd has to stay healthy. I'm not expecting that, but if you could get something, that'd be pretty sweet. Would it be crazy to trade all of our free agents in 2026 for draft picks since we don't have that many picks, then use those picks to move up? Ben, you're going to have to be a little bit more clear on this one, because if they're free agents in 2026, you're talking about Dobbs, Walker, Willis, etc., Enigbare. They can't be traded. They're free agents. So that doesn't work. If you're talking about trading all of our 2027 free agents, no, I don't have any interest in trading Tucker Kraft and Christian Watson, etc. So no, either way, it's a no. Either it's not possible in 2026 or no, I would not do it for 2027. Sorry to bring up politics during football time, but appreciated your takes on Minneapolis. Yep, we're not going to talk about it here, but appreciate the kind words. Is it weird that I think Enigbari is a must resign? I think most of our free agents we can let go and be fine. Like Gary Go, roll into 2026 with Parsons, Van Ness, Enigbari, Sorrell, and Oliver. I'm totally cool with that, she said, Joey. I do want to see what Enigbari's contract is. If it's anything like above 8 per year, I'm probably out. I want to go maybe shopping elsewhere. If it's a reasonable deal, I would be more than fine having him back as that kind of number 3 defensive end with LVN and Micah Parsons. You do kind of get to a point where you know what Enigbari is. I don't think there's a huge upside above of what we've already seen. And so maybe you want to take a chance at somebody else, but a quintet of Micah, LVN, Enigbari, Sorrell, and Oliver feels good enough to me at that defensive end position. Gear boys ready for training camp. I like the odds of being the Packers kicker as much as anyone. Who knows at this point? I'm convinced that if they had never come up with we fence, we would have won the Super Bowl this year. Friends don't let friends say we fence. I can't believe we fence is still going to be a thing in 2026. It hurts. It hurts the soul. Joshua Carty is a kicker named to watch, former draft pick with the Rams. They got Mevis now, and Carty is on the Cardinals practice squad and has had some good moments and is pretty young. I'd prefer him as a camp competition than Lucas Haversick. I'll put it that way. I don't really have any interest in keeping Haversick around. I would bring somebody else in to compete, which I think is going to be big for Green Bay this offseason, is just having an option there. All right. Yep. Now I'm going to go over the politics stuff. Yes, I knew what you meant with Mevis. Caden, it's what the G is silent, right? I don't know. I have to look at it more. Amazing kicker, punt returner, should be a draft target. Also has a really nice Shrine Bowl. Yeah, he's been good. He's not Green Bay's cup of tea. At least, things can change. Anthony Belton would not have been their cup of tea in the past, and they changed. So maybe they changed there, but yeah, he's not usually their type. What I think it needs to get to, what I would honestly like to see is have like week 10 or let's say week 7, maybe week 6 and 7. Week 6, everyone, you'd have to figure out a way to do this, but I think it makes sense. So week 6, the entire AFC is playing in an international game. So everyone's on the same page. All right. Everyone in the AFC is playing international. There's 8 international games in week 6. The NFC is playing at home. Okay. So the NFC is it's all NFC versus NFC, and they're all playing their normal round of home games. Week 7, the entire AFC has a bye coming off of their international game. Meanwhile, the NFC now plays their international game in week 7. So you have a slate of international games in week 7. And then in week 8, AFC plays their slate of games, and NFC all has bye weeks in week 9. Now, this would be on top of the fact that I think every team should have 2 bye weeks. Regardless of whether you add an 18th game or not, every team should have 2 bye weeks. This is making sense to bookend to have that, you're always having a bye right after your international week. I think then everyone is on the same page that you have an AFC week for international, you have an NFC week for international. I think it works out that way. Everyone is a bye after their international game. So again, everyone's on the same page. You still have another bye later in the season. And it just works out very naturally that way. That to me makes the most sense is to find a way to do it. Nobody has an additional home game than anybody else. You end up with a total of 16 international games every single year. You can put them wherever the heck you want. You can put them in Canada, Mexico, Ireland, Brazil, Australia. I don't care, but you've got 16 of them. Those are what you sell. Everyone has one, and it's all a neutral site for everybody. To me, that makes it really simple. It makes it really easy. It grows the game. You have a bye after the international game. It doesn't affect the season in any real tangible way. There's ways that you can make it work without having it be a detriment to any team, the way that it is a lot of times right now. It'd be so cool to trade Dobbs for Rashid Shaheed, which would be our wide receiver 3 and kick returner. Again, can't trade Dobbs because he's a free agent. So that goes out the window. think Khalif Raymond from Detroit is a free agent. He has all-pro returner. He was an all-pro returner a year ago. Could be an option. Could be an option. What question will you ask Goody? I haven't thought about it yet. I'll have to think a little bit. Have to think a little bit about that. Maybe try to get some clarity on Banks and Hobbs, if they'll be back, or I don't know. I'll have to think a little bit. Do you get an advanced email or message when press conferences get scheduled, or do you find out when the rest of us do? Today, I found out when the rest of us do because I saw the alert, but I do get an email from the Packers that there's a Packers media advisory and that there will be an availability on February 4th. So it is in my inbox. Came in at 3:04 today, probably right before those tweets hit. You guys, I get probably like 30 seconds on you guys before somebody has it out there on Twitter. What is your gut feeling about 2026 Green Bay after the coaching departures and additions? No real change, to be honest. TV living room. I still think this team is really talented. I still think they're going to have to do something to take a significant step in 2026. I don't think there's any major brain drain. I don't think there's any major, new up and coming coach that's going to change this team in any sort of significant way. I think it's in a very similar spot that it was. They need to stay healthy. They need to play a better brand of football in 2026. So pretty similar to where I was, at the end of the season. Having a really hard time getting behind the defense going into next year. We saw what the defense looked like with no Micah, which happens if Micah isn't Micah until week 8. Help me see the light. I think if there's a positive takeaway is, first of all, we haven't seen the product yet of what this roster is going to look like. It's probably going to be very familiar and similar, but there'll be some new blood, here and there on the defense, I would think. The second thing I'll say is, if there is an advantage sometimes to having a new defensive coordinator, it can be that, teams don't know what to expect. You're giving a lot of unscouted looks early in the year. And maybe if those first 4 weeks, Micah's not ready to go, maybe Jonathan Gannon does enough to be able to confuse some teams as to what to expect. And maybe that can be enough to kind of get by for a few weeks before Micah gets back and then hopefully causes some chaos. But to answer your story at the end, holy Jesus, they're going to need a very, very good Micah Parsons come the end of the year when things matter to make this defense good enough. And if they don't have that, then everything else is probably much ado about nothing. You're probably dead on arrival for the season if Micah can't be Micah by the end of the year. At least good is not Kwesi. Oh boy, those drafts he had were rough. They were not good. They were not good at all. Thanks for all you do, Andy. Do you use the NFL Combine in your scouting of players for the draft? Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at, you want to have the numbers available to know what the kind of scouting profile is, or the athletic profile is, but it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the be all end all by any stretch of the imagination. Now I'm going to come across as Wisconsin Badgers homer, but I would love them to take a flyer on Vinny Anthony later in the draft. Good receiver, even better returner. Have not watched him, Mike. I'll have to take a little bit of a closer look at him. I would be willing to bet you that McManus is the kicker, but he's going to have a strong camp if he wants to keep that job. But if I were betting on it right now, I would say McManus is probably the kicker. Still awaiting on a new offensive line coach. Unfortunately, Dwayne Ledford went to the Ravens. If I were Matt LaFleur, I'd have pushed for him. Yeah, it's a bummer that he's off the market. Every day that goes on, I would say it's much more likely that Luke Butkus and Rich Bisaccia are back. It doesn't seem like they're going anywhere at this point in time. There's been no report of anything. There's been no press release. And the other thing that I'll say too is, if Green Bay is going to go in a different direction with those guys, you want to do it quick so that they have the ability to land on their feet somewhere. That Rich can go and find a different special teams job if he wants it. That Luke can go find a different offensive line job. You want to do that pretty hastily because you don't want to leave those guys in the lurch. I would say at this point, I'd be pretty surprised if Rich or Luke go anywhere, just because I think they would have done it by now. I could be wrong. Probably hope that I'm wrong, but I think the more likely scenario is that they're both back next year. I know McManus will bounce back. Source, come on, bro. Trust me. I guarantee you, lead pipe lock, he will bounce back if he goes to another team. If he goes to another team, he'll be 45 of 45, all of them 50-yarders and above. He'll be immaculate. He just won't be in Green Bay, of course. I say in jest. With how bad Valentine and Nixon were in the playoff game, I still don't understand why Diggs only played one snap. Could have just been knowledge of the defense. I don't know. Probably should have used them a little bit more, to be fair. Is the teacher still competing? Yes. Yes, he has the long Packers record, and he is still on the roster. The open screen thing is a pack a day thing. Oh, I don't know then. I have no idea, Green Bay Gary. There's nothing that I'm doing differently that I'm aware of that would do that. I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. The one thing, Gary, that I've heard that, and maybe this is the case, does it happen on happy hours too? Because I think it's a members thing. I think it's a members thing for YouTube, and because this is a members only, that might be the scenario. You should try it after I make it live for everybody to see if it's still an issue, or see if it's an issue during happy hour, because I think it might be a members thing. But that, I don't know. I honestly don't know. All right, lost my spot. There we go. Where is this draft strong and where is it weak? Guess what, Adam? I have that very question for Justice Mosqueda tomorrow. He put together a great article over on acmepackingcompany.com. We'll talk about that later today, and we'll spend some time on that question in greater detail for you tomorrow. Like the idea for the international games, fantasy football players would be pissed. That's all right. Fantasy football players end up pissed no matter what. Kind of new to football, but curious, why not split more games like on Fridays and Saturdays so fans can watch more games instead of having like 8 games on a Sunday? Sorry for the newish question. It has to do with high school and college football. They've cared less about this, but there was sort of a long-standing tradition because all high school football is on Friday nights and all college football is on Saturdays. So there's been a long-standing tradition of, for the most part, not putting NFL games on Friday night or Saturday to respect college football and high school football. Now, again, that's becoming more and more blurred and less of a rule and more of a suggestion. We see the opening week Friday night and things like that, but for the most part, that's the big reason why, is that they don't want to interfere with high school or college football. You have $17 million to spend at linebacker, nose tackle, corner, and offensive line. The rest are filled in the draft. Assume Jenkins is gone and Hobbs is back. Where are you spending and where? Yeah, we'll do that exact exercise for the most part, John. I will just say the trenches would be my priority first and foremost. I want to protect Jordan. I want to get after the quarterback, and I want to stop the run. And I feel like for the most part that starts and ends up front. But I do feel like they need a pretty significant makeover at corner as well. Linebacker is not really on my list. It would be nose tackle, corner, and offensive line. But I would try to do as best as I could to spread that money to try to fix as many spots as I could. How happy are you with the coaching changes so far? Any move you really like or dislike? I do really like bringing in Babbage, but I'm bummed that they lost both Ansley and Ryan Downard. I think that's probably an equal for equal. I liked them bringing in Bullocks today as well. Again, I think overall their secondary coaches is probably a net neutral. I'm excited about the new linebackers coach. I think there's an opportunity to upgrade there, but that's going to have to be a wait and see. I honestly think Gannon and Hafley is going to be pretty similar. I don't expect it to be a huge improvement or a huge downgrade one way or the other. Maybe like 2 to 3 rankings within where Hafley was, give or take. Yeah, not much changed on the offensive side. I'm bummed about losing Mannion, but I think they can find a way to replace him and not have it be that big of a deal. So yeah, I mostly feel net neutral overall, again, from where we kind of were a year ago. I think the Gannon hire has grown on me. Really like his staff as he assembled. That being said, I'm going to keep an eye on how Buffalo's defense looked with Jimmy. A lot of them, there's a lot of, Christian Parker is an interesting one that's worth keeping an eye on. Raheem Morris gets a job. There's going to be a lot of people that Green Bay could have had that went other places. They chose Gannon. We'll see if it works out for him. Who's your favorite new coaching hire so far? Probably Babbage. I think Babbage makes a ton of sense as a secondary coach. I'd probably say that's the one I'm most excited about. But again, don't love losing, Downard or Ansley either. Kind of want Steno to get the OC job from the Seahawks and bring someone in to get new ideas. Well, Ben, most of the really good offensive coordinators are already hired. And if you lose Steno, you're not being able to promote Mannion. He's in Philly. And I'd be willing to bet you can't Hackett's now in Miami. I'd be willing to bet you that it's probably just Luke Getsy as your offensive coordinator. I think you just get worse. I think you lose Steno. Getsy's already on the staff, or maybe it's Jason Vrabel. But I don't know. I don't think that there's going to be this coach that you get that's going to have this new influx of ideas. My guess is he goes internal with it. And I just think you get worse overall in your offensive coaching staff by him leaving. Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. Feel pretty confident in that. Gut feeling, knowing his mentality, I wouldn't be shocked if Micah is this year's Christian Watson. Yeah, I would be stunned if it wasn't that, to be honest, Mike. I'd be pretty stunned if it wasn't that. I don't want to put pressure on him. No 2 injuries are equal, but he's going to work his ass off. I can guarantee you that. Happens. Yeah. I think it's a members thing, and I do think that is for everyone. I don't think that's just for Pack-A-Day. Yeah. Yep. Prediction: they cut Hobbs and bring back Diggs on a cheaper 1-year deal, given his friendship with Micah. Could be. I wouldn't be stunned by that. I don't expect it, but I wouldn't be stunned by it. Trade Nixon to Miami, reunite him with Halfley. They need corners badly. Go look at their depth chart. Could be. If Halfley likes Nixon, Halfley had to try to survive with Keyshawn Nixon as his corner last year and didn't always go great. I don't know how excited he's going to be about that. But as I talked about today, I do think Nixon has some trade value. So whether it be to Miami or somewhere else, I do think you could potentially find somebody to take him on. All right. Any other questions? Do I need to talk about my wrestling Mount Rushmore? I will. I'll do it. Give you guys a couple seconds. Oh, I thought I had something to drink. What a failure. I'm the worst. Couple drips left. Jason just says yes. Do it. All right, just really quick. All right, so wrestling Mount Rushmore, there's a criteria. You have to make pretty much everything somehow better in what you do. You have to be able to be a face. You have to be able to be a heel. You have to be able to wrestle to a real extent. You have to be able to sell. You have to be able to do everything. And so to me, Kurt Angle was to me the ultimate face, heel. He could be funny. He could be a technical wrestler. He could be a, punch and kick guy if you needed him to. Angle slam was great. Ankle lock. He had everything and the intensity. He had the gimmick. He was just the all-time great for me, Kurt Angle. HBK made everything he did better. Again, could be a face, could be a heel, could be a technical wrestler if he needed to, high flyer, could be, he could give you everything you wanted, would sell like nobody's business. You could put him in with a big guy, you could put him in with a small guy, and it didn't matter no matter what. You could put him in as a special guest referee and he made the match better because he was there. Like, no matter what, HBK out there, he makes everything better. Stone Cold Steve Austin is the easiest. Now, this is not somebody that I would normally have as as you can tell, I love technical wrestling, right? More like your Kurt Angles, your Shawn Michaels, your Will Ospreys. I love the pure wrestling and athleticism of it. Stone Cold wouldn't seem to fit that criteria. But once again, heel, face, big time icon, superstar. There's just an emotional feeling anytime you heard that the glass break. And when he fought the Kurt Angle, I don't know if anyone remembers this angle, but he went out and he had he showed that he could be a technical wrestler. And obviously the stunning Steve Austin, and he could have been a more technical wrestler if he wanted to be. I'm not saying he was ever going to be Dean Malenko or Kurt Angle or anything like that, but William Regal, but he could wrestle if he needed to. It just, that wasn't what his character was. His character was punching in middle fingers and stone cold stunners, and it worked. So, but if he needed to wrestle, he could wrestle, which is why he gets on my list. And then Will Ospreay, I've never seen anybody like him. I've never jumped out of my seat more for anybody. The athleticism, the moveset, it's just all incredible. My mouth is just, in awe the entire time that he's out there. I think he's the most entertaining wrestler to ever exist. So that's my Mount Rushmore. No real debate. I don't have anybody else that is even really in consideration, if I'm being honest. It's those four and those four only. Who would be a good backup to Jordan Love? That's a really good question. I do have that on my kind of to-do list as well. Okay. People aren't going to like this. I would go back to the well that fed you last time. I'm going back to the Tennessee Titans. I want to try Will Levis on for size. If Tennessee would be willing to do a stupid deal, I think he's done in Tennessee, by the way. I know people will point to Anthony Richardson and maybe a Zach Wilson or something like that. I want Will Levis. I think he could fit well in Matt LaFleur's offense. I think there's still something a little bit there. That's the direction I would go in. I hope AJ ends up in AEW. Just for even a cup of coffee, do 6 matches, find a way to fight Danielson, find a way to fight Ospreay, find a way to fight MJF, just do Hangman, do the 6 best that they got, Swerve, and then do a final career ender at TNA the way that it should be against whoever he wants, and then that's it. Be done from there. Do I eat a whole Luigi's pizza on my own? Yeah, I will say the thin crust ones, the originals. Yes, I can't eat the self risers or the Big Daddies, but usually I don't need a full one of those on my own. But it has happened, for sure. If you had to bring back a former Packer for the 2026 season, who is it? Mine is Lindsley. Wait. She said, I'm sorry, buddy. I love Corey Lindsley to death. One of my favorite Packers. I love him. If you could have any Packer back of all time, you're choosing Corey Lindsley? I'm sorry. That is a poor use of resources, my friend. I will accept Reggie White. I will accept Charles Woodson. I will accept a lot of different answers. I will accept Corey Lindsley. I mean, he's not even the best offensive line version. Give me David Bakhtiari. Give me, I mean, man, you could go in so many different directions with this, overall, but yeah, I would not have Corey Lindsley in my probably top 10. Prime Devontae would be fun. Again, I wouldn't hate that. There'd be a lot of players I would get to before Corey Lindsley. Super Bowl prop bet. Other than the ones that I've, kind of talked about, nothing too crazy. I don't get too crazy involved with that stuff. Just a couple here or there. Obviously get my, get a few picks in here and there. But, outside of that, nothing too crazy. Would the Packers do contract restructure on Jordan Love? It's possible. I bet they'd like to wait to do that probably more until next year. Option 17. They could. It wouldn't stun me if they did. Start my new job in Minneapolis next week. I'll be driving through Wisconsin a few times a month to get there, so I'll have more access to Luigi's Pizza. Let's go. Most hated Chicagoan. Get after it, my friend. Yeah, Brett was amazing. Brett was absolutely incredible. I don't think Brett had the charisma. That's the wrong way to put it. Brett absolutely had charisma. I don't think he was quite to that like entertainment level that, to me, HBK, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, etc. were at, and Will Ospreay. I enjoyed turning on those wrestlers more than I enjoyed turning on Brett. Brett was incredible. Deserves, Hall of Fame, probably top 10 all time, in my opinion. He was absolutely amazing. What I really love about Brett is that you could really, you felt like he was in pain. He was one of the best sellers of everything. And like everything felt like it mattered. Like it felt like, the sharpshooter really, he protected it so well. It felt like everyone that got put in it was just in excruciating pain. And it felt like every little thing that he did, it just felt like he was a step ahead, and everything looked like it inflicted pain. Everything that was done to him looked like it inflicted pain. It's a really beautiful style of wrestling. And I love Brett to death. Mount Rushmore is Austin, Flair, Piper, and Benoit. Not the person, of course, but the wrestler. Well, I was an incredible wrestler, but there does have to be quite the asterisk there, my friend. Any chance we keep Jenkins and move him back to guard, or was his tape that bad? I don't think so. I thought he was just bad. I don't think it had much to do with center. I just don't think he played well. But, and I don't think Jenkins is probably going to want to take a pay cut. And I don't think Green Bay is going to want him around the 19 million. We'll see. But I would expect Jenkins to be gone. That guy that is true. Spree for all. That is very true. I did forget about the mayo and the coffee thing. That is, that might tank the whole team. I might have to reconsider that. GB Gary, I got to ask the question. I got to answer. Sorry, the 21st century. Damn, if I forgot to add that. For which part? Oh, of the 21st century. Even then, there's better options there. Favorite Western movie? I don't know if I have a good answer to that. Imagine 1993 Reggie opposite of Micah. You and Negs could play corner with that pass rush. I wouldn't go that far, but that'd be a fun duo, that's for sure. Random question: what's a random food combo that you love that maybe others would look at you weird? For me, cane sauce and a burger is so good. Oh man, I don't know if I want to disclose any of these. This isn't like a weird combo. There's two things. I love butter. I'm like in grade school, I was called the butter man at one point. I wish it was because I did something that was like cool and smooth, but no, just because I put butter on everything. I will just say these are two very controversial things that I don't want to admit to, but I will give you this that you can make fun of me forever for. A peanut butter or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich has to have more butter than peanut butter. So there's a lot of butter and then a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of jelly, or a lot of butter and a little bit of peanut butter. I need more butter than peanut butter. It's a Wisconsin thing. I wish I could just say that. Nobody else in Wisconsin's as weird as I am. But I love the dairy. I love the creaminess. There's got to be a larger peanut butter or larger butter to peanut butter ratio than anything else. So now I got to have that butter in there. The other thing is, as a very wicked delight that I, again, do not want to admit to, one of my all-time guilty pleasures is taking just taking cold butter and putting it in a little dish, almost like it's ice cream, and then putting brown sugar on it. And it's not much. I just take a little bit, not a ton, and then just letting it kind of like melt in my mouth and getting, it's just you're making caramel without melting it, right? But it's so delicious. If you have never tried, just take a little spoonful of butter and sprinkle like a really good, amount of brown sugar on it and just put it in and let it melt in your mouth. It's amazing. I don't do it often. I would probably do it every day if it was not just god awful for you, but it's delicious. I don't remember watching Will Ospreay. Oh my goodness, my friend. Go and watch. I mean, he's like 1 billion 5-star plus match. He's got like 8-star matches. Just go on the wrestling, go on Meltzer's rankings and just look up the top 5 Will Ospreay matches and just have an afternoon, my friend. It's a joy. Hi, Andy. Glad to be here. Going through some tough times, but this is a nice distraction. Engine. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope everything's okay. It's one of the things that I love most about what we do is that we can just be a distraction from everything else. It's a distraction that I use for myself when things are not going great, either in the world or other. And I've talked about this in the past, but Packers are my constant. I can always talk Packers no matter what else is going on in life. No matter how good or bad the Packers are, to me, it's always still fun to talk about. And so hopefully we can be a bit of a distraction for you, but hope things get better for you and hopefully brighter times ahead for you, my friend. Remember seeing Pat Patterson and Peter Maivia, Rock's granddad, wrestling back in the day. Sean, man, that's aging yourself a little bit there, my friend, but that's awesome. That's very cool. Think we trade for Anthony Richardson? I don't think so. I think he's actually, I think he would go for more than what Green Bay would want to give, to be honest. I'd be actually pretty surprised. And also I do think that you need a base level of accuracy for Matt's offense. And I don't think Anthony Richardson has it. How can the Packers improve both O-line and corner this offseason? It's going to be tough, Matthew. It's going to be tough. The biggest thing is they need internal players to play better. They've got to find a way to have their own Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, Travis Glover, Jacob Monk. We can go on and on, but they have to have their own guys play better. That's the biggest thing that could really, really help them. Love me some butter. Oh, no, we're not doing ketchup. Just do tomato soup, my friend. That's a better way to do it. I've never put butter in a PB&J in my life. You're missing out, my friend. You're missing out. I would absolutely put butter on my butter. No question. My weird eating habit is peanut butter on a burger. I have had a very good spicy peanut butter, or it was like, what was it? Like I don't know, it was like a peanut butter. It was like an Asian peanut butter burger. And it was really, really good. I didn't expect to like it at all, but I finally just gave it a chance. It was like a peanut butter and bacon, but it had like almost like an Asian style to it. It was so good. I don't think butter's very good for you. Andy, I'm lactose and this is hurting me to hear right now. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't wish that upon anybody. There would be few things in life that would make me as sad as all of a sudden becoming lactose intolerant. That would be, that's no mozzarella on my pizza, no butter on anything. My favorite thing in the world is like chocolate milk, or I drink so much milk and chocolate. I'm a dairy Wisconsin boy through and through, like just through and through. If I was like, it would be a very, very difficult time for me. Would Wyatt Teller be a feasible free agent signing? Hopefully in this scenario it would kick Banks to the curb. I need to go and watch Wyatt Teller a little bit more to see if he has fallen off, and if so, how much. I need to go and watch him a little bit closer, if I'm being honest. I do not put butter on, like if I'm having a Luigi's pizza, I do not put butter on. But if I am making a homemade pizza, I am melting butter and putting it around the crust at the end and putting some Parmesan around the crust and making like a buttery Parmesan crust. So I am doing that. But no, I don't. Other than that, I don't put butter on my pizza. Oh yeah, the fact that I don't have diabetes is insane. There is no greater underdog story in the history of the world than me finding a way to not have diabetes. When I say like the majority of my life that I've had like 7 or 8 sodas a day, most of those back in the day were full sugar, Mountain Dew. Like the fact that I am a functioning human being to any real way, shape, or form and do not have diabetes and just even alive it's an unbelievable heroic underdog story. Make no mistake about it. I'm a carnivore. I eat half a stick of butter a day. Love it. Get after it. Deep fry that thing. So I just got here. Have you talked about the Mike LaFleur head coaching thing? Not a ton. I don't know how much there is to dive into it, to be honest. It's a cool story that Matt's brother is the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think it affects Green Bay that much. I don't think it affects Matt that much, but it's a cool story for the LaFleur family. And it definitely makes it harder when you say fire LaFleur or fire MLF. But very, very cool for their family. I don't know that I have too many takes on it on top of that, but hopefully he can have success in Arizona anytime that he's not facing Green Bay. Oh, I'm not a ranch guy. Not a ranch guy at all. All right, friends, I do have to get out of here. Soccer practice time. I will see you guys Friday for Happy Hour Live. Tomorrow, Justice Mosqueda and I, and should have a bunch of other fun episodes coming out throughout the course of the week. Thank you so much for being members. I'll see you guys all very, very soon. But until next time, and as always, eat a lot of butter and go Pack Go.